On today's episode of the show, three positions, not limited to, but three positions that Louisville could have all ACC caliber players at: linebacker, quarterback, and tackle. We'll identify who those three players are on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on, everyone? Welcome in to this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Want to take this time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville podcast, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. College football is just under a month away. The sports have stopped sporting like we want them to for the time being, but throughout the summer, FanDuel has been hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We continue along in our 5-part series ranking the top 15 players for the Louisville Cardinals ahead of the 2024 college football season. Now on to numbers 9 through 7. Just like the past two episodes, 2 offensive, 1 defensive standout to discuss. All 3 have the potential to be All-ACC level players. We begin on the defensive side of the ball, where number 9 is a star at the linebacker position and will be one of the best linebackers in the ACC this season. Number 9 is TJ Quinn. Quinn, it took him a little while to start to, have a ton of production with the Louisville Cardinals, but in his third season, he was fantastic. First one he redshirted, second one last year, Scott Satterfield's tenure, had 18 total tackles. It wasn't a terrible season. He just played behind, some solid players, Monty Montgomery, Momo Sanogo. He played a rotational role. 2023, phenomenal. Breakout season, to say the least. And I feel like breakout season doesn't really tell the tale because he went from 18 tackles to 91 in 2023. In the first year of Jeff Brom, 91 total tackles, 33 solo, 58 assisted. He had 2 pass deflections, half of a sack, and an interception. He had 4 games this past year with double-digit tackle numbers. He had a 3-game stretch from NC State, Notre Dame, and Pittsburgh across the end of September into October, and then he had 11 tackles against Florida State. His 1 interception came in a win against Virginia Tech and had the half a sack in that game against Tech as well. Only 1 tackle, but nonetheless, he led Jeff Brom's defense with 91 total tackles, was good enough for 9th best in the ACC in that parameter. That alone, truthfully, is the reason why he's on the top 15. If you're trying to justify to me that the best tackler on the team who is returning is not in the top 15, top 10, truth be told, I'm going to have a hard time believing that. And what I think is pretty interesting, as we talked about Ben Perry, and we've talked about some other players on this defense, TJ Quinn was a safety coming out of high school, played his high school in Georgia, native of Valdosta, Georgia, 6'1", 230 pounds now, but he didn't come to Louisville 230 pounds. He was recruited as a safety, but transitioned into a linebacker like multiple other players did. Jalen Alderman, Ben Perry, albeit outside linebacker, but still, it seemed like that was the MO, is to have that versatility to play either. So whenever you got to campus, you were then going to decide what position is insert player here going to play. And for those 3 guys, linebacker was the spot. And TJ Quinn has excelled since making that transition. It took him a little while as he learned the position, didn't really play his first year, second year, sporadic role, and then third year, breakout season. So year 4, the sky is the limit. He's going to continue to take the next steps forward. He's going to solidify himself as one of the best players at the position in the entire conference. One thing that I found interesting was listening to the coaches speak recently, and one defensive coach in particular. It's escaping my mind at the moment, but basically told the story about how he had dealt with injury earlier on in his career. Maybe not necessarily so much as injury, but maybe fatigue, just being banged up. But due to the lack of personnel at the position, he sort of just had to battle through it. And it made him into the player he is today. He is both physically and mentally ready for the season. And not to mention, as good as he's been on the field, his growth as a leader, a vocal leader, I should specify, it's been key for this defensive unit. And this is a group that returns a ton of veteran leadership. Ashton Gelati in the front seven, Quincy Riley and MJ Griffin in the secondary. TJ Quinn at the linebacker spot ultimately is going to be the quarterback of this defense. And the strides that he took between 2022 and 2023, fantastic. Here's the thing about it is, when you make that large of a jump in statistical numbers from 18 to 91 tackles, it's really challenging to see how this season is going to be like that, to where, by the numbers, he would then have about, 160 tackles. That's not going to happen. If he crosses over the 100 tackle threshold, that's fantastic. I think he's going to sit right at about that 90 tackle range, because you have other guys on the defense that are going to play a role, especially at linebacker. Stanquan Clark, I think, takes the next step forward. Yes, you lose Jalen Alderman, but Clark with another season. Geronte Davis, the transfer from Texas A&M. You have some other players that can also play in the mix at linebacker, and then you bring back Gelati, Riley, some really good tackling defensive backs, and then Thor Griffith in the middle with Des Tell and company. Needless to say, don't base how good of a season or how much improvement Quinn is showing merely just upon statistics. Now, if he improves those sack numbers or gets more pass deflections or more interceptions, that's where you start to look at the statistical improvements thinking, okay, yeah, that's where the improvement's coming. But just number of tackles, unless he just takes a huge decline in that category, if it's over 80, it's hard to call it one way or the other. It's really based upon the eye test. The All-ACC honorable mention is going to be relied upon to be the quarterback of the defense and to take that next step forward to get better in multiple aspects of the game. Obviously, he is really strong, plays with a ton of pursuit, and is a heat-seeking missile in the middle of that Cardinals defense. We've seen him lay some extremely violent hits over the past 12 months in the 2023 season, and that's going to continue this year. Very smart player, understands or is able to break down, what the quarterback is doing, what the offense is doing before it actually happens. Does a good job of reading opposing offenses. I think one aspect of the game that he can improve on is just being better in coverage a little bit better, or being better in coverage a little bit better, improving in coverage a little bit more, being better in coverage. If he's able to, show that he can cover at a high level while also being a really, really good run defender, and also being able to rush the passer situationally, it's just a matter of fine-tuning that skill set and just getting closer and taking that next step further to getting to the NFL, because I do think that he is an NFL linebacker. And the reason why he's top 15, number 9 on this list, is because you return that production. He's going to have an extreme impact on this team, on this defense. He's going to have a great amount of production as well. And the talent is there. He's one of the most talented players on this team. He's extremely strong. He's quick. He can go sideline to sideline. And he is an extremely smart player as well. So I don't really think that there's one aspect of his game that he's lacking. The thing that sort of keeps him between, number 9 and number 1 and being higher up this list, I'll be completely honest with you, I went back and forth here. Like, if you told me that TJ Quinn is borderline top 5 on your list, I'm okay with that, because he's been kind of going back and forth on my list too. With another season in the same defensive scheme under Ron English and Mark Hagan, you can't really discredit that amount of development that's going to happen because of the continuity within this situation. So Quinn's on this list. It's really just a matter of where you put him, not a matter of if he's on the list. So I want to hear where you all have TJ Quinn. Right now, for me, he's number 9. I ranked him as high as 7 a couple of days before this, but as of right now, number 9 for me. But don't let that fool you. He's going to have a fantastic season and be one of the best linebackers in the ACC. As we identify who number 8 is, simply put, all eyes are on this player in 2024. It's pretty obvious to me who that is, but just in case you don't know, we'll tell you who it is in the next segment of the show. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin does a fantastic job. It gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including discussion on conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Into the second segment of this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we are right smack dab in the middle of ranking the top 15 players for the Louisville football squad ahead of the 2024 season. Number 9, TJ Quinn. We will be on the offensive side for the remainder of this episode. Number 8 is the transfer portal edition at Signal Caller. All eyes are on Tyler Shough in 2024 by default. Jack Plummer was serviceable. Limited the ceiling for the Cardinals, but he did lead the team to 10 wins and wasn't bad, but he didn't necessarily raise the ceiling. Tyler Shough is a completely different situation. When he is available, he's fantastic. He has all of the tools to be an elite quarterback, not only in the ACC, but the entire country. However, we go back to that sentence, when he is available. Shough's injury history has been nothing short of brutal. He's had injuries to his collarbone, his shoulder, his fibula, in which basically the veteran hasn't played an entire season in either of his 3 seasons at Texas Tech. This is his 6th season of college football. Shuck is one of the older players across the landscape, and the 6'5" native of Chandler, Arizona, is looking to go out with a bang in his college career. He chose Louisville to play his final season after spending 2 years at Oregon, 3 at Texas Tech, never having over 1,600 passing yards in a season, never having over 15 passing touchdowns in a year either. Each of his 5 seasons had, outside of the first one, had at least 2 interceptions, 6-3, 4-4 in that order from 2020 to 2023. But Shuck is the ultimate case of the Brom endorsement. We know about, the whole narrative that, well, if Jeff Brom believes in this guy at quarterback, then so do I. That narrative is being put completely to the test here in 2024 because there's a lot of differentiating opinions. For me, Shuck is uber talented. The talent is oozing when you watch the film. Fantastic player. But I will acknowledge, and this has been, a mantra of this show since I've started this show back in 2021, and that is the best ability for a player is availability. And if you can't stay healthy, then, like I said, the prerequisite for being on this list is good health. And this is the player that you have to look at when you make that statement, because he's just missed so much time. However, when you look at the nature of these injuries, the broken collarbone, the shoulder injury, the fibula, none of these three injuries look to be due to a recurring underlying issue. Freak injuries, if you will. And unfortunately, as that sounds, it's the truth. He's just gotten the wrong end of the stick when it comes to injuries. But that doesn't matter. A freak injury or a recurring injury, an injury is an injury. If he's on the field, he's fantastic. And I think that Jeff Brom, knowing the medical history, knowing the talent there, he went out on a limb and made it a point of emphasis and a priority to bring Tyler Shough to Louisville. We saw in the spring game, and we've seen in fall camp, when he's on the field, he makes some absolutely jaw-dropping plays. He's a true dual threat guy. Now, with his injury history, going to be pretty interesting to see if they're going to commit so much to the dual threat because of the need to protect him and the question marks as to whether or not the backups are, serviceable enough to step up in the instance of Shuck getting hurt and being able to lead Cardinals to victory. I think in the RPO situations, which Louisville does like to operate, he's incredible. Very good operator of the run-pass option, does a great job of sort of hiding that football and making the best decision at the right time. All things are pointing to him having a fantastic season if he stays healthy. Now, that is the first thing you have to talk about is we are putting him at number 8 on this list because we understand that he should stay healthy. If he doesn't, then he's probably not a top 15 player because nobody is if you're not on the field. If he stays healthy, Cardinals will contend to win 10 games yet again. We all have heard the rumors that Jeff Brom had to limit the playbook last year and ran the ball more because of the issues at quarterback or the explosiveness at wide receiver, the lack of talent at tight end. You've improved all three. You've got an explosive receiver. You've upgraded the tight end spot. You've gotten a quarterback that can throw the downfield ball with ease. Really good intermediate throws, deep ball throws. Experienced quarterback that despite having been injured a lot, he's played some high-level games. Looking back, go back and watch some of the film with him playing. He's made some fantastic plays. Now, usually, if it's a player in his mid-20s at the end of his college career and he really hasn't had a breakout season yet, then I'm going to go on this show and say chances are you already know who he is. You already know who that player is. The chances of him having an uncharacteristically huge season are slim. But when there is so much context in this particular situation, just because the injuries, that's not going to be the case. Shuck is number 8 on this list because he's extremely talented. Because Louisville's going to throw the ball much, much more than they did last season. Last year was an outlier year when it comes to deviation between running and throwing the football. And the impact that he's going to have could be the difference between making or not making the college football playoff. I did say that when I sat down to rank the players on this year's edition of the series, I tried to take as much positional value out of the equation because if that was the case, it's really hard not to put quarterback at 1, defensive end number 2, at left tackle at number 3, number 4 being cornerback 1, number 5 being wide receiver 1, down the list. But it still does have a little bit of an impact on the rankings. And Shuck not being higher on the list is because he doesn't have that production behind his name just yet. But the talent is there. The production this year, I believe, is going to be there, and he's going to have a key impact for an offense that's going to throw the ball a very, very good amount and stretch the field. Jeff Brom is going to open up the playbook a lot. So Tyler Shough lands pretty much smack dab in the middle of the rankings. Some will believe that it's too high. Some will believe it is too low. So therefore, we're going to go in between both parties and put Shuck right at number 8. And I feel like that's pretty justified. It's not too high. It's not too low. What's separating from being higher on the list is obviously the lack of production. And I think that from 7 to 1, I mean, arguably, all 7 players could be the top player at their position in the ACC. So we end the show by discussing number 7. And what better way to have a player inside of the top 15 than having one that's going to be protecting Tyler Shough from the blind side. We'll tell you who number 7 is coming up on the final segment of Locked on Louisville. Today's episode of the show also brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports probably much more than I should. It's kind of a red flag, but nonetheless, we move on. The playoffs are long gone for NBA, NHL. College football is over a couple weeks away. Right now, we have basically Olympics and baseball. The sports have stopped sporting like we want them to. FanDuel lets you keep the sports going, however, whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that you are in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. The boosts, I just did a boost yesterday. LeBron to get 10 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists in the gold medal game of the Olympics. He got that very easily. The boost helped me turn a nice profit. So take advantage of those boosts. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And we're into the final segment of this Monday edition of the Locked on Louisville podcast. Once again, thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. If you're feeling so inclined, please drop a like on this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're feeling generous. We're just under 3 full weeks away from the Louisville football home opener against Austin Peay on August 31st, noon kickoff at L&N Cardinals Stadium. We're continuing along in our top 15 player rankings for the Cardinals. Number 7 is who we will end this episode with. He will be protecting the blind side of Tyler Shough. What better way to bring a quarterback in via the transfer portal than also to bring in his star tackle, number 7, Monroe Mills. 6'7", 315-pound tackle from Texas Tech. Mammoth of a human being. And for Louisville, one way to keep Tyler Shough upright is to make sure that you have the blind side protected. Monroe Mills will be the starter at left tackle for Jeff Brom's offensive line that is looking to replace Willie Tyler, who they got via the portal last season from Rutgers. Monroe Mills was one of the top tackles in the portal when he announced his commitment to the Cardinals program, one of the higher-rated offensive linemen in the Big 12, according to Pro Football Focus, had a 97.5 pass block efficiency, according to PFF, was a 2-year starter for the Red Raiders and had his best season this last year, which is encouraging to hear. He made all 12 starts in Lubbock, or for the team out of Lubbock, all 12 starts weren't in Lubbock. You would feel like that's obviously a given, but some people will definitely try to correct you on that and have a gotcha moment, but that's neither here nor there. Gave up 2 sacks. I believe that one of those was against Texas, and Texas had an NFL defensive line led by Tavondre Sweat and a couple other players. Gave up 3 quarterback hits and 10 quarterback hurries. Had his best season to date that earned him an all Big 12 honorable mention. The player that started his career out at Oklahoma State, spent the last 2 years at Texas Tech and will have one more year of eligibility while he plays for the Cardinals. Those stats that I just read you a little bit ago, 500 pass blocking snaps, about almost 900 total blocking snaps as a whole, only gave up 2 sacks. 6'7", 315 pounds. He makes the top 7 on this list at number 7 because of the level of production that he brings to the table, the veteran leadership that he has. He's going to be extremely impactful. He's going to be tasked with keeping Tyler Shough upright and also helping to block for the Cardinals running backs. So 9 through 7, I sort of went back and forth in the combination, but these 3 guys are pretty much all going to be inside of this particular episode. Mills started out at number 9, but when I broke down the numbers, saw how successful he was in 2023, I ended up putting him at number 7. He has the potential to be one of the best tackles in the ACC. Left tackle, right tackle, it doesn't matter. I would say that he can play the right tackle position very good, but he's going to be the starting left tackle for Louisville. One thing that keeps him at number 7 and not higher up this list, the first thing is because there are some really, really good players above him, and it's just really, it's no indication of the lack of talent on Mills' part. It's just more so a testament to how good these next 6 are going to be. And wow, there were some really challenging rankings to make. And number 2, I think he has the potential to improve as a run blocker. Really good in pass pro, but has to show that he can improve as a run blocker. And Louisville's going to be playing some of the nation's best defensive lines this season. Clemson down in Death Valley Junior. Real Death Valley is LSU, but Death Valley Junior, still a very, very good place to play, or very tough place to play, I should say. Notre Dame is going to have a good defensive line. Miami, Reuben Bain, Tyler Barron, you name it. Kentucky with Deion Walker. I mean, it's going to be a very, very good defensive line. That's 4 right off the bat. So not to mention the other solid units that Louisville could run up against. But Mills landing at number 7, I think he's going to have a successful season, keeping Tyler Shough upright, being, the really solid left tackle that Louisville just needs. And you see how much of an impact that can have when you have a really good left tackle and keeping Shuck's blind side protected. So the potential, the production level, the impact that he's going to have, and the overall talent sticks Monroe Mills at number 7. So number 9, TJ Quinn. Number 8, Tyler Shough. Number 7, Monroe Mills. We'll continue to dive into the rankings this week. I haven't decided if Tuesday's episode is going to be discussing 654 or if we're going to talk a little basketball recruiting, because we have gotten some more list cuts that Louisville has been involved with. So keep a lookout for what that's going to look like. But nonetheless, the intention is to conclude the player ranking series this week, and that by all means will happen barring unforeseeable circumstances. That is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.